Welcome back to another video, everyone. Today we're talking about all the books that I read in the month of April. So I finished 9 books in the month of April. 2 of them were DNFs, and I really hate to say that, but I'll tell you which ones. Some of them were actually a nice, pleasant surprise, and others that were anticipated were flops. So let's talk about the first book that I finished in the month of April, and that was 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. This is a romance that has been just so widely talked about on booktube and on bookstagram, and I've had it on my Kobo forever, so I finally picked it up. I will say it was a bit of a slow start for sure, but around the 50% 60% mark it really picked up for me, and I just felt so invested that it was a breeze to get through towards the end. I gave this book 4 stars. This book is about our 2 main characters, Eva and Shane. They know each other from 7 Days in June in high school, where they had a strong attraction and relationship with one another. And then, we fast forward 20 years. Eva is a single mom. She deals a lot with really difficult chronic illnesses. And Shane is this popular budding author. So is Eva. She's an author. What's really sweet about this is, 2 decades later, they find themselves reconnecting. And what I thought was particularly adorable about it was that they have been writing to one another through the characters in their books and not directly speaking. This was definitely, there's some spice in it. There's definitely, it's a bit of a slow burn type of a romance, or not slow burn, but the story moves slowly. Both of our characters are, grown adults in their 30s, so you definitely see a lot more maturity in terms of communication and the plot line. In some ways also immaturity, but I think that's human nature, isn't it? I gave this book a solid 4 stars. I thought it was really nice. I was so invested in the characters, and again, this literary fiction, right? So it was character driven and not so much plot driven. But I still really enjoyed it. Seems like very accurate portrayal of chronic illness and what it's like living with chronic illness. So that's a big trigger warning in case anybody struggles with that. But other than that, I really, really enjoyed this book. After that, we had our first DNF of the month, and that is A 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. You know what? I'm so upset that I didn't like it that I don't even want to bring it from upstairs. It's upstairs in my library. So we'll just leave it there. This book has been making its rounds on booktube. I was very, very excited for it. It is a magical realism adult romance novel. Ashley Poston writes a lot of YA. I have really enjoyed her YA over the years, and I still highly, highly recommend that. This book was not it for me. I DNF'd it at 40%, but this is about our main character who inherits this magical apartment from her aunt who unexpectedly passed away. It seems like this apartment has the ability to time travel 7 years into the past, but it's not like a hot tub time machine. It's not like you can control when you want to go or where you want to go. It just magically decides on its own. And it's a really, really cool premise. I liked it because essentially one day our main character, she gets home and she realizes that there's a random stranger in her apartment, and the apartment has gone back 7 years. The problem I had with this book was that I just was not invested in it. I tried reading it. I put it down for a couple months thinking maybe I wasn't in the right mood, and then I picked it up again and I still couldn't get through it. And I think the characters are lovable. It's just the story in itself, it just didn't capture my interest the way that I would have liked for it to. After that, I finished The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. This is the first in the series, been in my TBR pile for months. I got it at some point last year and I decided to pick it up, and you know what, it was actually pretty good. I gave it 4 stars. This is the type of murder mystery that is very reminiscent of Agatha Christie. It's so convoluted, it's so complex, it has so many different characters that I honestly think after years and years and years of reading psychological thrillers and really simplistic thrillers, this kind of destroyed my brain a little bit. I had to read it slowly because I felt like there was a lot going on, but that doesn't mean it was a bad book. It was actually really nice. This is set in a retirement village, and our main characters are a few of these retired folks in their 70s and in their 80s, and they have this Thursday Murder Club, right? So that meets on Thursdays where they look at cold cases and they try to solve them. But a couple murders happen in the retirement village, and they take it upon themselves to solve it. That's really just the gist of it. I love older characters. I think they're just so cozy and so lively to read about. The story, like I said, so complex, like layers and layers and layers of mystery, and like 3 different storylines happening at the same time. So yeah, like I said, it made my brain hurt a little bit, but I'm really glad I picked up, because I spoke about this book in my books that I'm avoiding, like the plague video. And somebody in the comment section said, maybe you should start with this one. I'm glad I did, because now some of the other books that I was avoiding are feeling a little less intimidating. All right, after that, I read The Reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson. Highly anticipated. I spoke a lot about this book in my highly anticipated books video that I will have it linked. Check it out. I'm not going to speak much about it here. I gave it 3.75 stars, which now that I'm talking about it, it's feeling a little bit high because I didn't love this book. This is about Rachel Price, so it's set around her daughter, Belle. Basically, Rachel Price is her mom who disappeared when Belle was 2, and because she was 2, she was witnessed the disappearance. She doesn't really remember anything, so it's been a cold case for a long time. Fast forward like 16, 17 years. There's a documentary being made on Rachel Price, the woman who disappeared, and Rachel Price reappears during the filming and the production of that documentary. Really cool premise. I have read a lot of disappearances. I have not read a lot of reappearances, so it really hooked me in. But the characters honestly were not lovable for me at all. Not a single character was lovable for me. The main character was so annoying. The storyline was really interesting. I think it had potential to be this really groundbreaking type of niche genre within this murder mystery thriller big genre, but it just didn't deliver for me. Some people have an issue with it, like towards the end, that it got like really ridiculous for them. I don't think that was the issue for me. It's just, it felt so, I don't even have the words to describe it. It just felt so unsatisfactory. Okay, but watch that video if you want to know more about this. The next book that I finished was Anna Maria and the Fox by Liana de la Rosa. This was such a fun surprise for me. I just randomly picked this book up during a Kobo sale a few months ago because it's set in the Victorian era in England, and it basically follows the story of Anna Maria. She is the first of 3 sisters she's an heiress from Mexico, and her family has helped her flee Mexico along with her other 2 sisters to England because Mexico right now is trying to resist French occupation. Really lovely history lesson for me. That was a total blind spot for me. I had no idea. And it was just so refreshing of a historical fiction to see colored folk, BIPOC folk in Victorian era England within high society, but also resisting high society. Okay, so I know a lot of other Regency era books that I have read, even if they have BIPOC characters like that series of Palestinian author that I really like, they're still immersed in high society, but here it felt like they were resisting it in some way, and Anna Maria was definitely that character. It's about her, and she travels to England with her sisters, and she falls in love with a British politician, Mr. Gideon Fox, who is a young black man whose ancestors were enslaved. And again, so much like fresh perspective and fresh characters in that setting that I really enjoyed. I gave this 3.25 stars. Now, there was a reason why I didn't rate it higher, because I'm talking really highly about it. The potential of the book was there. I think it had potential to be so much more, but I found that the story moved very, very, very slowly, and just some things happened, like romantically between the 2 main characters. It just felt very convenient. There's an element of, I guess you can say, like marriage of convenience, but the characters themselves were so complex and multidimensional, but they were acting in one-dimensional ways, if you know what I mean. Like there wasn't complexity to how they were participating in the story. So that wasn't my favorite. But you know what? It was actually a fun book, and I think this is going to be a series, so I will likely pick up the next one in the series, which is going to be about Anna Maria's younger sister. After that, I read The Good, the Bad, and the Aunties by Jessica Sutanto. Again, it's in the video of my most highly anticipated reads. I really enjoyed this. It's the 3rd one in the series of Dial A for Aunties. The first one, enjoyed. Second one, third one, really good. So what I loved about it too was that it was short. You can see that this is a small-ish book. Sometimes in cozy mysteries are so long, they just seem to be endless. They just seem to go on for like ever, and they don't need to. So this definitely was not that. I really enjoyed it. This follows Mary Chen and her aunts and her now husband as they go to Jakarta, Indonesia for their honeymoon. So I like that it takes place outside the States, which is where they live in California. So it takes place outside the States. Again, lots of outlandish, ridiculous family drama. Really enjoyed it. Watch my other video if you want to hear more of my raw thoughts on this. Up next, I wouldn't be on BookTube if I didn't pick up this book and read it. It's a funny story by Emily Henry. Everybody's talking about it on YouTube. Very enjoyable. I will say definitely better than Happy Place, which was her last release. Happy Place was just too sad. Like, usually her banter is amazing. She has this like positive, like upbeat vibe, even if she's talking about tough things in the story. But Happy Place was not it. But here we're talking about Funny Story. And Funny Story was actually all of that. It was not my favorite Emily Henry. My favorite Emily Henry still is Book Lovers and People We Meet on Vacation. I know, not very popular ones. I really enjoyed them. But Funny Story was actually really quite enjoyable too. In this book, our two main characters, Daphne and Miles, they come together when their partners start dating each other. So now they're forced together. It's forced proximity because the guy Daphne's engaged to ends up cheating on her with Miles's girlfriend, and then they become engaged. And Daphne and Miles find themselves in each other's company, interested in one another, and that's how the story goes. I definitely think it was a little bit juvenile-ish. It did not feel insta-lovey, but it just felt like really like someone you have been with for 5 years, you know, kind of just like replacing them so quickly. I don't know, it felt, something about it just felt off for me, but overall this was really quite enjoyable. Emily Henry was back with her lovely banter with her characters, side characters, always amazing. Really enjoyed them. Emily Henry and Ali Hazelwood, they have a way of making the side characters also feel like main characters, if you know what I mean. Enjoyed this book. Also more thoughts in the highly anticipated video. Then the last book that I really wanted to read, I was so excited about. I tried and I just couldn't, and I DNF'd at 25%, and that was Don't Want You Like a Best Friend by Emma Albin. This is a Regency era queer romance. So exciting for me to read something that's Regency era and queer. I had really high hopes going into this, but it felt like such a drag. I really, really hate to say it, because I think some people would really enjoy it, but it just felt like such a drag for me. It was not for me. Like, just the story was not moving. And I understand that there is a slow burn aspect to this, but the romance can be slow burn, but the plot needs to move forward, and the plot was not moving for me. And I tried reading it, putting it aside, coming back to it again. I thought maybe I'm just not in the mood for it, but this just book was not it for me. I may pick it up at another point. It's still on my Kobo. But as of right now, I have solid DNF'd this. And the very last thing that I read in the month of April was What Will People Say by Tanya Gupta. This is a collection of poems, a new release just a few months ago. And Tanya Gupta is an Indo-Canadian author. This was, I believe, her first work. So this was really quite enjoyable. This collection of poems really talks about her journey as a woman through being a daughter, a daughter-in-law, and then just breaking out all of these like patriarchal confines, and just what it is like to be inside the head of a South Asian woman who's dealing with all these things. Some trigger warnings for sure. There's a few mentions of sexual trauma, of suicide, of depression. So definitely be mindful going into this. But I really enjoyed the movement from themes of guilt, of what will people say, into resilience and into empowerment. Okay, that's it, folks. Those are all the books that I read in the month of April. I thought I did a pretty good job, actually. Read a lot of good stuff. I hate the fact that 2 were DNF, so really read 7 books and then DNF the other 2. But, you know, DNF them at least a quarter of the way through so they count. Thanks for being here today, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care.